87% of realtors that get into the business get out of the business after 2 years. That does not exist in our world.
We have massive visions around growing our businesses, and we are always looking to add talent to our world. We do everything in our power to ensure the people we surround ourselves with defy the odds, get into production, and build massive lives for themselves.
We have interviewed some of the top realtors in the world. If you're a new realtor, a top producer, or CEO of a mega team, Sales Beast Podcast is your blueprint for success.
With locations all across Canada, reach out to us to talk about partnership and opportunities. We are looking forward to it. Yes, I'm the boss. Welcome back to another episode of Sales Beast Podcast. And today we are joined by Ghaz Syed. He is the founder, managing partner of AGENTC Recruiting Bureau. And we're super excited to chat with him about finding talent, how to dive into finding talent, and who you really need to be looking for. So welcome on board, ready to have you started.
Hey, thank you for having me today.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey? Let's kick it off fairly light. I know that you've been in this for about 12 years now. So give us the Coles Notes.
So Coles Notes wise, really, I started off as a recruiter in capital markets, right? And I was doing my own thing. My partner, she was in real estate as a real estate sales agent. Both of us met at one point, and she said, look, there's a niche, there's a need within the realm of residential real estate. Let's join forces and see what happens. This was 12 years ago. And since then, we've been humming away, helping not only solo agents, but as well as teams, top producing teams, whether it be the Chairman's Club, Diamonds Club, all across the board, right? As well as the brokerage side of things, from front desk associate or front desk receptionist all the way up to broker manager, right? And when it comes to brands, we've been brand agnostic, so we help all brands throughout the board, right? That is what we do in a nutshell.
I imagine a lot of people listening to this probably don't even know a service like the one you're offering exists, and some probably wonder, why would I ever hire someone like that? You explained something pretty interesting offline. It gave me a lot of clarity. So what happens in this business? You work really hard in the beginning. If you're good, which most people are not, but if you are good and you make the cut, you're going to get really busy and you're going to have a lot of clients without a lot of help. And eventually you can't spread yourself wide enough to help all those clients. So you call a guy like Syed because you have no idea how to recruit on your own. You're probably not that good at it, but you need people to help you with your business. And is that fair to say that's when you step in?
That's
build a bench for people.
That's definitely a good question. Yes, that's a fair statement. So to be able to paint a picture, usually the folks that come to us, they've hit 35, 40 transactions, right? And they're extremely busy. They don't have an administrator. They're looking for that help, that trusted person that they can fall back on. And that's where, through their connected friends network or their colleague network, they come to hear of AGENTC. And that's where I come in, have a conversation with them to see where their business is at, what are they looking to forecast, how we can build this together with them. Because it's not only placing someone in the hot seat and saying, go run with it. We're placing people who are experienced. So, when people call me, they call me because I have the expertise, or my team has the expertise to be able to source people, to headhunt them. In real estate terms, it really sounds like, okay, we're door knocking, right? Rather than picking up a barista or a teller from a bank, we're door knocking within a 30-kilometer radius to be able to find that talent who wants to hop from one team to the other. Funny thing is, people call it stealing, but I'm merely just making a call and saying, hey, are you interested? I have an opportunity. And if they say, no, my boss takes care of me. 9 times out of 10, when someone is interested, it's only because their salary is not there. They're not getting that flexibility. And they want to be able to progress in their career, right? The Achilles heel for why teams in particular lose good talent, good candidates is simply because, the 9-to-5 structure, that's what's needed, right, in our industry. And I know real estate is a 24-hour game, at the end of the day. But yeah, that's what it is in a nutshell.
So are you saying you're saying more real estate teams need to adopt the 9 to 5 structure? And I don't know.
So more real estate teams need to be cognizant of the fact that it is a 9 to 5 structure with the occasional after hours, right? Because what I hear on the other side with candidates, or qualified candidates rather, that they're saying, hey, you know what? Realtors are making all these, transactions happen, but at the end of the day, we're not benefiting from it. And if we are benefiting from it, there is no money, no amount of money that we can collect to be able to say, yeah, I want this. I don't want that lifestyle. I've chosen to be on the back end as an admin. That's what they're saying, as a client care manager, right? On the team side. There's a different conversation on the brokerage side of things. Realistically, what I hear from candidates, again, when I say candidates, I mean qualified candidates, people who have 3 to 5 years experience within the industry, know how to broker load, know how to work with Canva, know how to hold a conversation or type up an email, right? It's these people that I'm speaking to that require, tender loving care, TLC, right? They're asking their employers to be, they're looking for, nowadays what I'm hearing is work from home, right? They're asking for work from home. They're asking for, are there any benefits, because they have families, right? And then the other aspect of it is salaries, because, you'll come across teams that are saying, 45,000, 50,000 is what I'll pay for someone who has 5+ years experience. Well, market is dictating otherwise.
Yeah, and I feel like also the landscape of the economy is dictating otherwise as interest rates rise. Well, today they're staying the same, or as inflation goes up, employers need to be able to match what people are demanding. And so that kind of brings me to my next question. You mentioned at the beginning, before we got to jump on the call, that there's really 2 models towards hiring talent in this industry. There's either you do it yourself, or you hire someone like you to find those talented individuals. So can you maybe give us some education around what agency would do as a recruiting company, how to find the right talent, and who we're looking to hire, especially if we're looking to scale our businesses?
So I'll start with the do-it-yourself model, where people can try to do it themselves. And I use the terminology called posting and praying. I see a lot of ads on all these job boards that are out there, right? They posted it. It's a generic job board, job ad on there, and they're waiting for someone to come through, right? Now, if our clients were to, not only clients, but whoever's listening out there, were to utilize the door knocking method to be able to go into their referrals, for example, right, and see, okay, do you have anyone available? Who's at front desk? Who's an up and coming talent out there, right? There's a do-it-yourself model that will take in time, because people post the job description, they pray that someone comes, they go through a 1-step interview, shake hands, okay, let's start. There isn't any particular contract in place to be able to protect themselves as employers, right? Whereas when we come in, we're not only coming in to find the person, but we're coaching our client throughout the way to say that, okay, is the opportunity on their payroll, or is it going to be contract, right? If they're a contractor, then it's a matter of, okay, then they're allowed to have other clients, other realtors on their roster, right? Because then you fall into the whole CRA type of thing, where Canada Revenue Agency type of thing, where it's a tricky thing to be able to say, hey, I put them on contract, but they're only working for me. Whereas CRA says that you have to have that person on full time, right? So we're educating them throughout the process to be able to funnel through which candidates are out there. So to clarify even further, once we've signed on a agreement with our client, it's more a matter of sussing out, okay, what are they looking for? What's the cultural fit, right? Going back to, can they broker load? Can they, put up a feature sheet together? Are they able to speak to the clients, right? Once the contract is signed with us, we go to market and see, okay, who's available, who's out there within a 30-kilometer radius. Granted that this position is a in-office position. If it's a remote position, the ball game is a little bit different. Now, if it's an in-office position, what candidates are asking for is that to be able to come into the office 9 to 5, right? That's what they're asking for. 9 to 5, possibly with benefits, that'd be nice, right? Going back to salary scale in this day and age, again, if you're looking for someone with, I'd say, about a year or 2-year experience, you're looking at the low end, maybe 50 to 55,000 in the GTA, in the Greater Toronto area, right? And I've seen salaries as high as 75, 85 base salary. This is not, there aren't any bonuses or anything else allotted to it. But again, with the 75 and 85, it comes down to a matter of, okay, what's the demand? How much experience is there? Right? It's a 75, 85 demands, okay, this is more of a managerial position. So going back to your question, what happens is that when we go to market to find these candidates, right, we're not sending all resumes through that are coming through, right? It's a matter of going through the funnel process. Okay, who's good? Who's got a cultural fit? I mean, considering we've been in the business for the past decade, we have a database of over 15,000 candidates Canada-wide and some in the US as well, right? So we have history, more importantly. Okay, who to look out for, what's there, what's available, what are the repeat patterns, right? So to be able to ensure that our client is set up for success and it's not a revolving door scenario. So, I usually go through the entire behavioral interview process to be able to say, okay, what did you do here within this particular organization or this team? And how can you plug into the team that's doing, let's say, 100 transactions, right? Is there a right fit? Can this person grow into it, right? That's what it comes down to. I mean, there's the skill portion of it, but the most important aspect of it is cultural fit. Mm-hmm. Because 40 hours of the week, the employer, our client has to come into the office, has to communicate with this person, has to jive well and make sure that the business is a humming unit, right? And the individual that's sitting in the hot seat, they need to be they need to be able to produce, right? So 2 or 3 candidates are presented after we've had our internal 2 interviews with them, behavioral interviews, to be able to see, okay, are the stories matching up? Once we've had those 2 interviews internally at AGENTC, then we present them over to the client to be able to see, when they can meet this individual. A face-to-face interview is much better as opposed to a over the telephone or over Zoom, simply because you pick up on the nuances of body language, of how the person is, what are their tics, how do they behave, how will they behave in front of clients, mm-hmm. right? So when there's a first face-to-face interview, usually lasts about half an hour, 45 minutes. See if it's more of a casual conversation to be able to see, okay, is there a connection, right? Thereafter, we usually recommend don't pull the trigger, don't hire the person, right? Because I've seen our clients previously where they've tried to hire on their own and it's a hot mess, basically, right? Usually we recommend have a second interview, right, with your team member to be able to see, because you're introducing someone, taking someone not only off the job market, but from one job to the other, because I'm not bringing you someone who's available in the market, right, who's readily available. I'm bringing you someone from another team or another brokerage into your organization. So we have to do our due diligence. And throughout that process, I'm providing behavioral interview questions to be able to say, hey, okay, this is what you need to ask. It's a skeletal framework. And, you tell me what you think. And usually after the first and second interviews, I'm debriefing with both sides with the client as well as the candidate to be able to say, okay, is there a fit? Were there any hiccups? Were there any red flags? If the second interview goes well, great. We're going to third base, which is basically come into the office and work for that day. Our client is paying the individual, the candidate, to work for that day. Let's say, for a round figure sake, they're asking for 60,000 annually, right? So that roughly translates into $30 an hour, $30 an hour. Now, $30 an hour for 4 hours saves them a whole. When I mean them, I mean the client, the realtor or the brokerage, saves them a whole lot of hassle to be able to say, okay, we've hired someone to see, okay, how do they behave? How are they operating? Can they operate under pressure? Mm-hmm. So for those 4 to 6 hours, this candidate is in the hot seat, whether it be broker loading, whether it be, looking up things on MLS, whether it be, whether it be talking to their clients, right? And obviously we provide again, a skeletal framework of a sheet to be able to say, okay, this is what you can ask of them. And these are all live details, or this is all live work that's happening, right? Thereafter, if that goes well, then there's the references check, reference check portion of things. If the references go well, there's about 2 or 3 professional references that we ask the candidate to be able to furnish. And if they're able to furnish, when I say professional references, it means that they report it into someone that can speak to their performance. It's not a friend, it's not a colleague, it's not, okay, yeah, we worked side by side in a cubicle. It's more someone that they reported into that, preferably pays them every 2 weeks, kind of thing, right? And if the references check out well, it's not me, by the way, that's performing the references. We put the onus on the client to perform the references, to conduct the references. Why? Because I want to be as unbiased as possible to say that the client is fully satisfied. And the most important thing is that the references that are furnished by the candidate, those are the ones that are called. Because if we're going around to be able to see, as you know, the real estate industry is fairly small, right? We can pick up the phone and find out, who works where, what their work habits are like. And if anything leaks, then again, it's a hot mess, right? In a legal battle. So we need to be able to ensure that we're following guidelines to say that we're calling the references that have been provided. And once the references are done, then they're off to the races. In 2 weeks' time, the candidate starts with the client or the realtor or team, and off they go. Now, I'm usually in touch with them for about a 90-day time period, within the 90 days. Because within the 90 days, there is that storming, forming, norming, right? There's coming together. There's either there's a meeting of the minds or there's a mishmash in the beginning to be able to say, okay, what's the storm? How does the realtor operate? How does the brokerage operate? Who are my colleagues within this sphere, right? The reason why I give that 90-day, and I apply it to within our own business as well. All these practices that I've mentioned thus far, I apply it in my own business as well, because in that 90-day time frame, you're able to figure out, okay, yes, is this someone that I'd like to work with, or do we go back? There's so many fail-safe measures in place, as I've mentioned, simply to avoid, a revolving door. So that, in a nutshell, is our hiring process from beginning to end.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm going to go back to one of the first things that you said there is most people post and pray that they'll find the right candidate or they'll find talent to grow their business. But when you're thinking of your business as a business, you need to have a system. And that's what I heard. I heard you sharing your system for hiring. I think for the people listening, whether you're doing it on your own or you're working with agency or any kind of recruitment agency to find talent, it's important to have a system and not just Google like top 10 interview questions to ask, but actually have a system for making sure that you're getting into talent with the right individuals. Now, it also sounds like what you do versus what a typical person does is somebody will like you said, post and pray. So they're just marketing themselves and waiting that someone will show up, versus you're actually prospecting for talent. You're actually lead generating for talent. So when someone's thinking about hiring, what are some of the places aside from, competitors that people should go to look for talent?
So that's definitely a good question, Anna. It's kind of like having billboards, right? When I mentioned post and pray, it's having billboards out there and putting your picture up there to say, okay, call me if you need property. Hey, you get a lot of leads, right? Now, those prospective leads, are they going to convert or not? We don't know, right? And that's how your list grows as a real estate agent or as a brokerage or what have you, right? Similarly, once we post on, there's a plethora of job boards out there, right? Namely Indeed or LinkedIn. You can post on there, but ask me, why do I post on there? I post on there simply for, okay, this is simply for clout, to let candidates know when they're scrolling to the job boards, to let them know that, yes, there is an agency that exists that focuses, that is niche within the realm of real estate, and similarly for clients, right? I can tell you from one job that I've had for the past week, about 200 applications have come through. And out of the 200 of sifting through them, there's only been one person that has been qualified to speak to, right? And most of the applications that come through, it varies from place to place, right? It's just it's a numbers game. If you're going to post, you're going to pray that someone comes through. But going back to your question, do I recommend? Yes, there's a go-to place. There's a holy grail where all the great candidates exist. What we'd like to call in the recruitment industry as purple squirrels, or the unicorns, if you will. No, there isn't, right? Whether it be Indeed, whether it be LinkedIn, Workopolis, or Monster, you can try your luck on there, but it's a matter of, you have to utilize your network. You have to utilize the expertise that's around you. And the reason why the reason why a lot of teams as well as brokerages utilize this is because we're the buffer, right? They don't want to ruffle any feathers, right? We come in the middle simply because, it was agency that did it, for example, right? And that's how we connect the relationships together. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, so it sounds like there's not necessarily a one place to go to, but being able to expose, your database, your network, the people around you, and take action on different types of places to find different leads for talent. And then from there, have that system, whether it's through you or personally, to actually really process those leads.
So as we're talking about this, one thing that I'd like to mention when it comes to candidates, it is a candidate-driven market. Employers, unfortunately, don't have the upper hand, right? To be able to say, yes, we can hire, we can use the same negotiation tactics to be able to reduce the salary that we'd like to be able to, the asking salary, right? It is a candidate-driven market. It's unfortunate that there aren't many good quality candidates out there, and when they do surface, they're worth what they're asking for, basically, right? Now, the other thing that I typically mention to clients, let's say they want to hire themselves, is to be able to focus in on law clerks, administrators from law firms or from banks, because there's a structure there, right? There's a training process there, right? These are organizations that have invested time, money, and energy into it. Not to say that real estate hasn't, but real estate goes a mile a minute, right? And this is where we can utilize to be able to bring quality candidates in, but not only bring them in, but it's also a matter of nurturing that relationship for the long term. On average, from what I've seen, good quality employees are exiting the real estate realm. Why? because whether it be salary, whether it be benefits, whether it be options of working from home, right? Or they've plateaued in terms of how high they can go in that particular, whether it be a single agent, a team, or a brokerage, right? So it's also about nurturing that relationship and seeing, okay, how can we work together? Because I get a lot of clients coming to me and saying that, Gaz, I need to find someone who can stay with me for 5 to 10 years minimum. I said, well, that's not possible, right? That's not possible. Maximum you'll get is 2 years. And if you get 2 years, you've invested that time and money to be able to set up a system in your business, right? So that someone else can come in and move to the next step, right? If I've seen folks that have been in a business for 5 years, either they're related or they're very well taken care of, or it's a succession plan.
It's probably very helpful to people that you set that expectation with them. So I remember the first person I ever hired, she was a gift. She opened up so much time for me. We spent a ton of time together. I spent a ton of money training her. We traveled to different countries to attend trainings, and then poof, 2 years later, she's gone. And I'm thinking that was amazing while it lasted. But I spent so much money training this person, now she's no longer in my life. If I had someone there telling me from the get-go that the average lifespan of an employee is 2 years, I'd be totally fine with it. I would have expected that.
In this day and age, it is 2 years, right? Especially after COVID. Because what COVID did for a lot of employees is they said, hey, I can do this job from home. Now I want work from home. Because what they're expecting now is they're saying that this job can be done from home. I don't need to be in the office. I don't need papers put on my desk so that I can be told what to do. I can do the job very well from home, and we can still keep that communication. Obviously, there is a huge trust factor involved in all of this as well, which is where I walk our clients through to be able to say, yes, there are softwares out there where you can, if you don't trust your employee, for example, there are softwares out there where you can clock in, clock out to be able to monitor.
Does anyone still do that today?
Yeah, they do.
I remember when I was a kid, I'm a little bit older than Anna, but I had some summer jobs where if you wanted to go to the washroom, you have to clock in and they time you. You got 15 seconds to pee and be back right away. It was insane. And now every job, I came from a corporate background, and I remember showing up to that job. I think it was a good employee. Everyone seemed happy with me. But in the back of my mind, I would always worry, what if I get fired? What if I lose this job? Maybe it'd be hard to find another job. That mentality seems to be totally out the window at this point. It seems as though the employee is the one that holds all the cards today. And it's probably very challenging for a lot of your clients because I'm sure they're in markets just like mine where volumes have pulled back 30, 40%. And yet everyone's making less money, but we're paying way more money to retain employees.
And we're also making less money, but we're still doing the same amount of work. That's the
it's the nature of the business, right? Or being in business rather, right? What it comes down to, and when I'm having these conversations with clients, especially in the realm of real estate, I always ask them, are you with a coach? Do you have a coach with you? Because when they have a coach, they have clarity. And when they have clarity, they're able to come to me and say, okay, now I want to hire. This is what I want to hire. Then not only am I communicating with them, but I'm also communicating with their coach to be able to say, okay, what is this individual coming into their organization, right, coming to do? What does that look like? Usually, I've had a few teams that are in the Chairman's Club or Diamond Club, top producers they've come to me and said, I need to hire. I'm busy. I'm drowning. I don't get much sleep. There's no quality of life. I said, okay, so who's coaching you right now? And they mentioned their coach, XYZ coach, or they don't. The ones that don't, I typically send them over to a coach to be able to say, okay, you guys need to get on board get organized, and then come to me. Because the last thing that I want to do is I don't want to take someone from one team and put them into another team where it's not organized. So the phrase goes out of the frying pan into the fire, which is why there are all these fail-safe measures that I mentioned earlier in terms of our process, right? As much as I'd like to be able to take on all the clients that call us, right? It's a matter of, okay, are we aligned? Is your business aligned? Are you aligned with your business? Are you ready to hire, right? All these questions need to be asked before you say, yes, I want to hire. The other aspect is that people are asking, they want a no strings attached employee, right? If business is up, great, there's work for you. And I'll pay you for your hours part-time. But if business is down, no thanks, I don't need you. But yeah, if you put yourself in the employee's shoes, it's a matter of, okay, they have a livelihood as well, which is why I recommend, get to 40 transactions, 40, and then we can definitely, when I say 40, I use the term loosely because, if it's a luxury market, obviously you don't need to be at the 40 mark, but I'm talking about the standard 40 transactions, right? So when they get to the 40 mark, then they can come to me and say, okay, what can we do together?
Yeah, from an employee standpoint, I think they need to be really careful about that. And I assume that's something you also help them with. I find it amazing in the real estate space how comfortable some employees seem to be working with their employer. But if you roll back the curtains on their employer's business, oftentimes they're not profitable, and that job may not be totally secure. So if I was on the operation side of this business, I would really vet who I chose to work with, because we see it all the time in this business. Someone gets hired and then poof, the job's gone like that.
Yep, it happens all the time. I've seen it happen often, which is why I ask our clients, well, what were your transactions like last year or the year before? What is the consistency like? What are you forecasting for the year that's come up and coming? If these, when new clients come to us, I'd like them to understand that it's not a matter of me attacking, but it's a matter of me understanding. Are they ready? Do they know their numbers? Have they sat down with their financial planner? Have they sat down with their accountant? Have they run the GCIs? Right, to be able to see. I mean, we're entering into the fall market right now. It's going to be heyday. So we'll see what that brings.
Yeah.
Right.
Have you ever had to?
The other thing too. Sorry, we interrupt each other a lot.
Yeah, we do.
But I saw this over the course of the pandemic. We have this ego number up top. GCI, I made $1 million. I'm amazing. But the net is what really matters. If you made $1 million and you went out and bought a Lamborghini, today you're absolutely cooked. If you made $1 million and tucked it away for a rainy day, you're probably very safe to seek a job from that person.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's a matter of business planning, what it comes down to, right? Knowing their numbers, because within the industry, we've come across tons of stories where people are making money, but it's just as easily running out like water, right? So there's a matter of business planning, which is why I ask, okay, who's your coach?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think too, one thing I experienced as an agent, I was very resistant to hiring someone because that number you mentioned, 80 grand, 85 grand, is terrifying if you never had an employee. But at KW, we're fortunate. We have Emery, the millionaire real estate agent. And I remember reading it years ago for the first time. And Gary Keller in that book, he uses a 90-day plan also. You're dating before you get married. And you're paying someone 60 grand a year. No, you're not. You're actually setting aside 15 grand. And if in 30 days you're not satisfied with them, so what? You missed out on 5 Gs.
I should
so you're
mention,
not married to them forever.
Exactly.
But if you do marry them, it's probably because they're amazing. And they'll blow your business up in the best way possible.
Uh, I should mention that, you bring a good term, because there is the marriage aspect of it in this entire life cycle, hiring life cycle, but there's also the divorce aspect of it as well. When
Mhm.
the employer says, no, it's not working, we need to part ways, right? Um, and usually, what I mention to them is that you have to decide within 90 days. Don't let it stretch along too far. Don't let it, because us as human beings, our good nature is to be able to try and make it work. We don't want to go through that cycle again, right?
Mhm.
And that 9 times out of 10, I've come across clients who say that, look, I don't want to fire this person. They have this, they have that, the other. But is it helping your business, right?
Yeah.
So what I was going to say before when I rudely interrupted Mike is very similar, is like, have you ever had to turn down a client because they were not prepared to make that hire, or help them create that plan around how to actually make that hire?
So my philosophy is not to turn them down, but is to refer them, right? It's to refer them to resources that they have not been exposed to as of yet, right? It's to be able to say, no, you know what? I was there at one point. I needed help. That's why I reached out, because it takes a lot. You're exposing yourself. You're coming out and saying, I'm vulnerable. I need help, right? So I wouldn't say I turned them down, but I'd say that, look, where you are at right now is not a point in time that I would be comfortable in terms of placing someone in your care, right? What I'd like you to do is go through these steps. Now, if they're resistant to taking feedback, that's a different story altogether, right? But most of the people are very thankful of it and say, okay, let's keep in touch. And once it takes a quarter. When I say a quarter, it takes 3 months for folks to go to a coach and get it all together, and then come back to me and say, okay, now I'm ready to hire. Because now they know their numbers, now they know how to structure their business out, and now they know what they actually need. Because they have to they not only have to work in the business, but they have to work on the business, right? I mean, that's what Alex Hormozy talks about. I see that book back there, and 100 million offers. I recommend everyone listens to that. Even the next book that's come out, what's it called? 100 million leads.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm almost done that one. But yeah, folks in our industry need to listen to those 2 books as well.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think we've learned a lot from the conversation today. There's so many things to consider when you're looking to hire. One of the things that we talk about often, and we've mentioned it in a couple episodes, is that if you're thinking about hiring, like, get into contact with people like Ghaz, like people that have done a lot of hiring, that understand the processes, so that you can learn some of the systems, that you can get some support. Because if it's the first time that you're making a hire for your business, for yourself, I mean, number one, it's the best kind of accountability when you bring someone into your organization, because now you have to make sure that your business stays consistent. You're bringing in income. You're now responsible for feeding that person and providing them a paycheck every 2 weeks. But also, you want to make sure that it's the right fit, and that you're not wasting time, energy, or money into a person or a situation that might not be bringing you the best potential outcome.
So the other thing that I'd like to mention, Anna, is that, it's a matter of having conversations to be able to pick each other's brains, right? I have had the luxury of speaking to many people within the industry, and with that come best practices, right? You learn best practices about who's doing what's working, what's not working, right? And that's what we can share in a conversation to say, okay, this is what you need to do now to be able to strengthen your business.
Definitely. Mike, do you have any other questions around hiring or recruiting that you wanted to make sure we get Ghaz to answer for us today?
I don't think so. I've always done the do it yourself method and fail forward, and over time now I can pick up on certain character traits or aspects of someone's personality that lead to believe that they will work out or they won't work out. But that, I'm still not perfect by no means. You would be way better at that than I am. And it's taken me 4 years to get here.
There's also, sorry for interrupting, there's also that aspect, and I'm glad that you mentioned that about personality, because there's a study in psychology where within the first 30 seconds you'll know whether you get along with that person or not, right? So that's something else to keep in mind when I say cultural fit, right?
Definitely.
I often think too, the majority of my time is focused on hiring realtors. And we just got out of a very easy market where it wasn't overly challenging to sell a lot of homes, and things have shifted. And you ever hear that quote, when the tide goes out, you see you swimming naked? There are a lot of people swimming naked right now. And one mistake I made was to over hire during that time, and I didn't necessarily hire the right people. And I think now that things have become more challenging, there are fewer people showing up to our industry, because you'd be crazy to join our industry today. And if you can have someone like yourself to vet these crazy people who are saying, I want to be in real estate now in this troubling time, you can build a phenomenal bench for yourself. And when the market shifts the other way, it's going to be lights out.
Well, that's just it, right? I mean, people who last, or people who have grit, that's the word that I can think of. Usually when they go through a cycle, and when I mean a cycle, it's usually a decade, to see what happens in the industry. That's when they're in it for the long term, right? Yeah.
It's amazing in our business how many people aren't in it for the long term. Like, I'm very fortunate in Hamilton. We have a guy, you probably heard of him, Rob Golfi. So you've had him on the podcast. Every day I see his face on the billboards. And he's a Remax guy. I shouldn't say this, but he's the best in the world at what he does. He's amazing. Rob Golfi's not going. Volumes could be cut down to 20% of what they were at the height of the pandemic. He's still going to be here, and he's still going to crush deals and have an amazing business. I think more people need that mindset.
Well, when we speak of Rob Golfi, he loves what he does and does what he loves, right? So that's what it comes down to. When you get into real estate, it's a matter of, do you like selling? Do you like prospecting? Do you like people? Right? That's what you have to ask yourself. Those are the core questions you have to ask yourself. And can you hack it when there's a dry spell? Right? So, whether it be on the team side, solo agent, or brokerage side, that's where we come in to be able to assist with these hard questions and answers.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Ghaz, as we wrap it up here today, we want to ask you one final question that we ask all of our guests, which is, who do you know that we should know that should be on the Sales Beast podcast?
Right now, off the top of my head, honestly, I don't know anyone that should be on the sales podcast, but I can definitely refer once I do, think about the next individual that should be on your podcast.
Sounds good.
Okay. Perfect.
Great.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you so much.
Thank you so much.
Right.
Every day I'm hustling. Every day I'm hustling. Every day I'm hustling. Every day